What is up, party people? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin because I do be reading. And in this video, we're going to talk about all the books that I read in March. I just wanted to do a few little housekeeping things before I talk about the books that I read. First, thank you for everyone that engaged with my last video. I was not expecting to receive so many views and comments and everything like that. That is the video that has done the best on my channel since I've been posting in the last 4 years, albeit inconsistently, so that also makes sense. But yeah, I really appreciate all of the really thoughtful and thought-provoking comments that people put on that video. But yeah, you may have seen in a community post that I made, but I am also going to be attending BookNet Fest at the end of May. It's going to be like around Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be there as one of the panelists. Very excited. I've never been a panelist on a like book convention, book fest type of thing, so that's really exciting. If you live in the Orlando, Florida area, Florida in general, or you're going or you want to go, I hope to see you there. I think it'll be a really fun time. This is my first time going to Florida. Honestly, this is the first time I'm going to the South at all, so excited to see what it's all about, and I hope to see y'all there as well. So let's get into the books that I read in March. The first book that I completed in March was This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This is the second book in the Skyland series. The first one was Before I Let Go. That one I had given 5 stars. It's one of my favorite romances. It made, I think, my best of list for whatever year I had read it. So I was very excited for this follow-up. We are following one of the main character's friend, Soledad. She is a housewife and mother to 3 kids, and she is having like kind of a rocky relationship with her husband, and then shit really hits the fan. And through circumstances, she ends up divorcing her husband, and she also meets this man. What is his name? I can't remember his name. I want to say it's Jonah, but that might be the main dude in Before I Let Go. Anyway, we meet him as well. It's mostly from Soledad's perspective, but it is like dual POV, but mostly from Soledad's perspective. And really, we're just like watching her rediscover herself, like reconnecting with what she loves and her passions as she is trying to, you know, take care of her children now that she is essentially a single mother, dealing with all of the circumstances that led to the divorce, and then also falling in love again. And I thought it was really great. I gave this one a 4.25 stars. Didn't love it as much as Before I Let Go, but I still really enjoyed this. And honestly, I hope this gets turned into like a movie or a TV show or something, because that, like, the first third was so juicy. I was like reading it on a plane, and I kept turning to my friend who was sitting next to me like, yo, things are hitting the fan right now. So it was a good time. Definitely recommend. Check it out. Then I read To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chung. This is the first in an adult fantasy romance series. You know, I already made a 45-minute long video talking about this book, so I'm just gonna link you there and you can go watch all of my full thoughts. But I gave this one a 1 star. It is my least favorite book that I've read so far this year. I thought it was poorly written. It had poor world building, poor character development, just poor writing. It just, all of it was not good. And I think this is one of the cases where I think I understand what the author's intent was, but I don't know that they thought too deeply about what they were doing with this book, or maybe just didn't have the writing skills to do what they wanted with this book, and it ended up having a negative impact, or like the opposite impact of what they were maybe hoping for, if that makes sense. But anyways, like I said, you can go watch that video. I talked clearly at length about my thoughts. Then I read Before We Fall by Rilsey Adams. This is the second book in the Unexpected Lovers series. The first one was Go Deep, and that was like more of a novella. This one was longer. It's following a friend of the main character in Go Deep. We're like starting to see hints of her story in that book, so I think I would recommend reading the first book. There's like some overlap. Like I'd say like the first half of this book is like it happening at the same time as that first book, but I would definitely recommend reading Go Deep first before getting into this one. And I would definitely check out content warnings for this book. It was a lot more heavy than I was, and like, I mean, I was expecting it to be heavy just because of the things that were being hinted at in Go Deep, but just off the bat, like content warnings for domestic violence and sexual assault. But we're following Tasha, who is basically trying to extract herself from a very abusive and toxic marriage that she's in. And there is a friend, like it's like kind of a friend of a friend situation. Like he's a part of their larger friend group, kind of like realizes what's going on and has had personal experience in his life related to DV. So he is like trying to help her out and get her to safety, and then there's kind of like feelings along the way. It's very intense. I was very stressed while reading this book. I thought it was really good, and I think Rosalie Adams did a decent job of like tackling this subject in a sensitive way. I mean, I'm not someone that's experienced domestic violence, so I cannot speak on authority about that, but I thought it was a really interesting look at just like falling in love, like when you're in that situation, and just like also like how that impacts like future like relationships that you've had. Yeah, it was intense, complicated, deep. I gave this one 4 stars, but again, I implore you to look further into the content warnings before picking this one up. And I will say too, if you're someone that has experienced this, or this is like more of a sensitive subject to you, like there is stuff like on page. So it's not like just like kind of glossed over, like we are witnessing this as well. So just letting you know. Then I read my first Toni Morrison novel. I did read Recitative, but that was Beloved. It was a 5-star. You love to see it. I think I've mentioned in maybe my February wrap up or some other videos that I'm wanting to do like a classics video, and I started filming it, and I was just going to do Fire Next Time and Beloved, but then I realized I only had like 8 minutes of footage, and I am undecided if I want to like scrap the video and start over at a later date, or just like kind of continue it on and read a couple more classics and post it when I'm done. I don't know what y'all think. Let me know in the comments. But I did read Beloved. I feel like a lot of people already know what this book is about, but it is about Setha. She was born a slave, and then she escaped to Ohio, and it was a very traumatic situation. Obviously, I mean, all of it was a traumatic situation, but she's still kind of being haunted by something that happened 18 years previously, and 2 of her sons have kind of just like left her, like kind of run away from her, and like the trauma of this house because it's kind of being haunted, ? And then we are with her daughter, Denver. And this is just like such an interesting novel, the way it was written. I think if you're someone that needs like very linear and very one POV at a time, I think you're gonna struggle with this. Even me, and like I like when things are like moving around a lot, I was struggling with this at first, at the beginning of this. It took me a second because it just kept switching perspectives and timelines without like explaining what was going on. So I was not sure like where we were or like what time period we were in, and it took me a second to get into. It was very slow and I was very confused, and I will admit I went to SparkNotes. I haven't used SparkNotes since high school. Okay, this is over a decade ago. I was like, I just need to like figure out like where I'm at. And then I also ended up switching to the audiobook like a third of the way through, and I think that really helped too. And also Toni Morrison narrates it and just has such a lovely voice, And so I think listening to it also helped me follow along better. And I was like debating on giving this one a 4.5 stars because of my like experience of reading it at first, but no, like that's on me, not on the book. So this is a 5-star, obviously. And we're just like, we're following Setha and her kid and various other people as they're dealing with like the trauma and generational trauma of slavery and motherhood, and the lengths you'll go to protect your kids from like just horrible situations, and then how people are reacting to things that you may have done that you felt were being protective of your kids, and then just all of this stuff. A lot is going on, but I think it's really good. I think it's great, actually. Again, another one where I really urge you to look into the content warnings. I think just based off of my explanation, I think you can anticipate the kind of stuff that's in here. But yeah, wow. I've been thinking about this book nonstop since I finished it, and it was great. And then the trans rights readathon started in the last week of March. Well, it started like in the second to last week and went through the last week of March. Anyways, I think it was like March 22nd to March 28th. And I read most of my TBR. I started reading He Who Drowned the World and only read like a chapter and realized that I was not in the right headspace to read that book. I don't know why I thought I would be able to read it with other books like in a week, because She Who Became the Sun took me like almost a month to finish. It's just like a book that I want to like sit with and read slower. So I've decided I'm going to like softy enough for now and come back. It's not even softy enough. I didn't even get that far into it, but I'll come back to it later when I have time to like slowly read it. But in any case, I did read everything else on my TBR for the readathon. I picked up Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi, and this was 5 stars. I had 2 5 stars back to back because I read Beloved and then I read this, and I was like, I'm living the best life right now. This is the prequel to Pet by the same author, which I actually read for the Trans Rights Readathon last year, so it felt like full circle. And I loved this, okay? Because I gave Pet 4.5 stars. I loved it, but I loved this one a little bit more, and I really recommend just like reading them together. I'm like kind of wondering like in what order you should read it. I don't think it necessarily matters, but I think reading them close to each other is good though. We're following Bitter, Jam's mother, that's the protagonist in Pet, when Bitter is a teenager, and we are in a very different version of Lucille, the world, the city that they're living in. It looks much like our world, you know, prison industrial complex, poverty, racism, all these structures of oppression, and things are really coming to a head. There's like a lot of people who are protesting and getting like beaten up, and like a lot of kids rising up and fighting back. And there is like a little magical element in here. Bitter has the ability to like bring her paintings and like drawings to life, and she accidentally brings like these monster hunters, and they have to deal with that. But really this book is just like looking at the different ways that you can help with the revolution, basically, because Bitter spends so much of this book just like talking down against people who are like the protesters. She's like, it's not gonna get them anywhere. She also, it's just like, she has like a lot of fear. She doesn't want to get beaten up by the police. She doesn't want to be taken. She just, like, most of her life she's lived in fear, and she's finally in a spot where she's like feels comfortable and safe, and she doesn't want to like ruin that for herself by like going out and joining the protesters, even though friends and other people around her are. And so she's kind of like dealing with that, but there's different ways for people to assist and help in the revolution, right? Not everyone has to be on the front lines. Like art and, you know, healing and other types of ways of helping, you know, everyone has their own role, and it's not all gonna be the same. So I think that's what this book was really getting at. And then in Pet, you know, Lucille is a much better place. It's almost like a utopian society, but there's still harm that can be done, and the fight for a better world is never ending. So anyways, I loved this. It was so good. I highly recommend both Pet and Bitter. It was a great time. And then I finished up the month with a manga called Boys Run the Riot. I read all 4 volumes. There's only 4 volumes. I read the first volume, gosh, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, and I ended up buying the rest of the series, but I never finished it. So I ended up rereading it and then finishing up the series. This is following our main character, Rio. He is a trans teenage boy in high school, and he is just like really struggling, obviously, with his with like body dysmorphia and his identity, and like hiding his identity because he really just doesn't want to experience bullying and doesn't want to draw attention to himself. And especially in Japan, many students have to wear uniforms, and he's like being forced to wear girls' uniforms and just is really struggling with it. And then he gets approached by a new student one day to start a fashion brand. So we're just kind of following the both of them becoming friends and starting this fashion brand and making friends along the way, and just like getting more comfortable with his identity and all of that stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I think there was some interesting conflation of like gender and sexuality that happened here, but I don't know if that was maybe like a translation issue or like maybe like a cultural difference, but overall, I really liked this. I really appreciated it. I think this would be probably really helpful to a lot of trans and non-binary teens who might be going through a similar situation. And the art is really good too, and the fashion is really cool as well. So I had a great time with that. I think overall I'd give this series 4 stars. I think each volume kind of like varied for me. I'm making a quiche, sorry, that was my oven. Overall I'd give it like a 4-star, but each volume kind of varied for me. But that is everything that I read in March. I would love to know what y'all read, what were your highlights, your lowlights, and also if you've made it this far, let me know what your favorite song off of Cowboy Carter is. Me, I can't pick a favorite. It feels like I'm choosing a favorite between my kids. But the song that is currently stuck in my head right now is Yaya. So anyways, I will catch y'all in the next video, and have a great rest of your day.